All right, everyone. Last but not least, extremely important topic, corrections and mental health. This is our last panel for the day. Have I said it's the last panel? Thank you so much, everyone in the room, for staying with us. I'm sure it's not about the book. I'm sure it's for the panel. It's important that you be here. On our panel today, before I forget to introduce moderator, Naomi Sayers is going to moderate this last panel of the day. I think many of you will know Naomi from her work as a criminal defense lawyer or through her social media. She's an excellent and creative trial and appellate lawyer. She's going to moderate this esteemed panel of Yusuf Faqiri. I think most of you will know the tragedy that befell the Faqiri family when Yusuf lost his brother Soliman, when Soliman was killed in CECC in the Lindsay Super Jail in horrific circumstances. Yusuf has really devoted his life to advocacy for safety and compassionate care for individuals with acute mental health crises in jails and prisons, and also so that they are not warehoused or housed in those conditions. There's a CBC documentary, My Brother Soliman, that I encourage you to see. It's on CBC Gem. And so we're very honored to hear from Yusuf today. Also on the panel, Adelina Iftene is a law professor, associate professor of law, Schulich School of Law, and criminal justice certificate coordinator at Dalhousie. Adelina teaches criminal law, evidence, sentencing, and focuses on imprisonment and prison policy. She's the co-author of the annual review of criminal law through Thomson Reuters and sentencing and penal policy in Canada, cases, materials, and commentary. We're very lucky that she's here. I'm so sorry about that. She's come in all the way from the East Coast. And finally, last and not least also, Dr. Gary Chaimowitz, a forensic psychiatrist who's the head of service and the person in charge of St. Joseph's Healthcare in Hamilton, which is my favorite forensic hospital. That's the one that I seek admission to and never leave, as you heard from the previous panel, should I be found NCR. And I think, look how happy he's smiling. He's so happy that I'm coming there soon, probably. That's our panel. And thank you for staying. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you everybody for being here. So we have a diverse panel. We're going to start from that end and then work our way down here. And for the topic today, we decided on like an overarching topic so that we could talk about a range of things that the panelists could talk about relating to their work. And because it's the titles on corrections and mental health, sorry, I'm just looking at my phone because that's where my notes are. I couldn't open up my laptop. So we thought to start off with the challenges and successes facing your work. And we'll start off with Adelina. And if you could just discuss some of the challenges and successes facing your work.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you so much, Anita, for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. It's been an absolutely wonderful day to learn from everyone. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the challenges that individuals are facing from a legal perspective. And I actually I'm going to talk because I don't think we're doing questions, right? It's just like...
No, we're just...
Yeah, okay.
Talking.
That's what I prepared. So, I mean, I can be flexible.
Yeah.
I'm still saying the same thing no matter what. There is quite a bit of literature at this point, and I've certainly published a lot in terms of the challenges that incarcerated individuals face in accessing healthcare in prisons, federal or provincial prisons. And I'm not going to rehash those issues because I know that some people are always surprised when I talk about those, whether it's from my work or other people's work. But I do believe that legal professionals have an obligation if they are working or in any way with accused or incarcerated people to inform themselves of those issues. So I'm not going to do that here. However, what I do want to do here today is to go over the challenges that these individuals face when seeking remedies in court for their for the harm that they have encountered in prison, either because they haven't received adequate mental health care, or because the abuse they suffered at the hands of officers while they were suffering from mental disabilities, or the negligence they have encountered in prison. So these are the kind of things that we see a lot, what happens to, where can they look for redress? Now, I do want to sort of just make a broad point here. I do believe that the prison system is utterly inadequate for any person with mental disability. I do not believe that any person with mental disability should be in the prison system. I do believe that it requires significant and sweeping reforms beyond what courts can offer at the point of, I do not think it's on the courts to address these sort of systemic issues, but I do think that the courts have a role to play. And this brings me to what Justice Louise Arbour said almost 40 years now in her report on events, report on certain events at the Kingston Prison for Women, where she said that the rule of law is not going to implement itself behind prison walls without intervention from courts or the parliament. 40 years ago. And I'm sitting here at the table with Yusuf, whose brother was killed by officers while in detention. And there are so many other examples of mistreatment that I work with people as part of civil societies as well. I do a lot of policy work and I deal with these people on a daily basis. And this is the norm. The inadequate mental health care in prison is the norm, has not changed in 40 years since the women were abused at Kingston's Penitentiary. What has changed a bit is the fact that courts have become more receptive to people challenging their conditions of confinement and challenges the inadequate healthcare. There have been some successful charter cases that I'm sure you know about, like the solitary confinement ones, for instance. However, they are not raising to the level of need that individuals are facing and abuse that they are facing. And that's for two reasons. One of them is the notorious lack of access to justice, procedural lack of access to justice that incarcerated people are facing. And the second one is a lack of substantive access to justice. And I'm going to explain what I mean by both of these. So, first of all, in terms of procedural access to justice, one of the obvious issues is the lack of access to lawyers. And here I'm addressing sort of the lawyers in the room and the students that might be coming up to and becoming lawyers. It used to be the case that the occasional mental health lawyer or the occasional criminal or mostly criminal defense lawyers would just pick up some of the prison cases and represent incarcerated people. The issue with that is that representing somebody who's making a claim from behind bars, even if it's something that you've seen before, like a mental health or claim of negligence or abuse or anything like that, it's a different ballgame when it comes from behind prison walls. It is not the same thing. It requires significant expertise on the side of the lawyer to know the prison law, the prison policies, the conditions of incarceration, and that's an expertise that historically lawyers did not have. Things are changing. I'm part of an amazing Canadian Prison Lawyers Association. They exist in various provinces. Law schools are offering courses on prison law now. Legal aid has sometimes prison files, including we have one at Dalhousie. There are prison clinics, of course, like not just Queens, which used to be the only one, but there are more and more ones appearing. So I would encourage, if you are taking on a prison case, maybe you're working in a different field, you're not a prison lawyer, do not just take it in and by yourself. Go and seek mentoring from somebody who does prison law. You will find them. They are out there. There are lots. Join an association, look for the community experts. That will ensure the most success for your client and will place you in the best position possible. So expertise is one. The second one is obtaining evidence from behind bars. This is notoriously difficult, and it's a lot difficult than obtaining evidence from, a forensic institution or anything like that. And that's part of the wall of silence that has to do with correctional officers, and it has to do also sometimes extends to the prison medical personnel. Is notoriously difficult. The most successful cases that I've seen are the ones where the incarcerated person has spent decades making notes and basically recording every single incident that had happened to them. Now, to be clear, this kind of record keeping is not something that people in mental distress have the foresight sometimes to do or really the ability to do. So that means that for them, it's essentially impossible. And here's where the role of oversight mechanisms like Office of the Correctional Investigator or civil societies that go in, independent researchers that can produce systemic evidence, they need to be funded because, of course, it's not going to replace the individual evidence that needs to come before a judge regarding the individual, but adding that systemic evidence is going to be of invaluable help in promoting access to justice. And this brings me to the last point on procedural issues, which is the fact that there is some body of literature in terms of how inadequate healthcare is in prisons, how abuses happen. So I would like to ask judges to consider taking more judicial notice of those issues. Judicial notice is there to improve access to justice for things that are notorious, the things that are well known. And the lawyers have such a high burden of bringing individualized evidence anyway. So do not ask for that evidence when it's systemic things, when it's things that we all know how they are going in prison. Only who doesn't want to know about how terrible prisons are for people with mental disabilities doesn't know. That would also improve it a lot. And also the lawyers have the duty to ask for judicial notice to be taken, in my opinion, in these cases. And again, I'm talking about things like the way people are treated when they have a mental disability, the lack of access to healthcare in provincial and federal prisons, the risk of abuse, the lack of access to medication or too much medication or to other types of therapy. And I would think this would be appropriate to be taken not only when people file charter claims, for instance, for breaches of their rights, but also at sentencing. And this is linked very much to the panel that was before aside, and fortunately, I don't have time to talk more about it. And finally, the substantive access to justice issues. I have a couple more minutes. Okay. Substantive access to justice issues. This has been generally, the courts have shown incredible deference to the administrators on judicial review. It's still a level of reasonableness, so that's part of why we're not seeing a lot of successful judicial review applications. And people have moved towards more charter claims, negligence claims, and so forth. Some of them are successful. There are also significant substantive challenges in obtaining justice on this. One of them is the incredibly high standards for charter challenges. For instance, Section 12, which is supposed to be the section that's very protective of ensuring that there is no cruel and unusual treatment, is very hard to apply to prison conditions. It has been developed in the sentencing context, and it uses a grossly disproportionate standard. Now, this applies and makes sense to the sentences because these benefit from oversight. If it's a judge render sentence, there are courts of appeal. If it's a minimum sentence, that goes through the legislative process. Applying this cumbersome standard to conditions of confinement and inadequate treatment that completely lack transparency makes it impossible to actually have this section offer a proper protection. So I've written about it elsewhere, and I advocated for changing for this track, changing it to a deliberate indifference standard or minimal impairment. Section 7 is the most promising of them. And I have wrote specifically on charter challenges on Section 7 for healthcare in prisons. The main issue here, even when cases were not successful, it brought us back to the issue of not being enough evidence. So it wasn't that Section 7 would not apply or was not triggered, but the evidential record was not strong enough. And I'm going to conclude here with, brings me back to all the evidentiary issues that I mentioned, but I do want to add one more thing, and I think this ties more to the substantive issues. I see very often, not always, but often, Crowns bringing in correctional officials to talk about the conditions of confinement as part of childhood challenges at sentencing and whatnot, to talk about how adequate the mental health care system is, how people are having access to all the medication they want, and all of those. And occasionally, I see a great deference to those correctional officers from the judges. And it worries me. It worries me because this deference comes when the experts, they are treated as expert witnesses without being qualified as expert witnesses. They are actually testifying at lay people, and excuse me for saying that, clueless lay people sometimes. Because the reason is correctional officials do not know what happens on the ground. And even if they do know, they sometimes embellish the truth, because after all, corrections has an obligation to provide healthcare. They're not going to take the stand and say, oh, we do not have healthcare. We are totally in breach of that. Nobody would ever say that. They do not say that. And over-relying on these correctional officials as being the experts without being the experts is it's a double standard, because I've never seen this kind of deference in any other area of law than in the prison area of law. And secondly, it significantly frustrates access to justice for people who already have a hard time producing evidence. So I would suggest that there are some challenges in this aspect. So, well, I'm going to stop here and sorry.
Yes, it's okay. I was just trying to get your attention, but I didn't want to.
Yes. No, I'm stopping. I could talk forever, but I'm going to stop.
That was very
Yeah,
important. what you
yeah,
said.
it
That
was very important.
what you just said. It's extremely
Yeah.
important.
There's a
what
lot of
Adelina
deference,
said.
yeah, to correctional officers and giving it the treatment, more treatment than it deserves. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your last name. I missed this.
Gary.
Gary, thank you, sorry. And we'll move on to Gary, and he'll talk about the challenges and successes in his work. And I have a timer here, but if you
Cheers, I've
would-
got a clock else close
Yeah.
to 10 minutes.
You're ready.
Yeah, let's get going then. So hi guys, thanks very much for having me here. So as you heard, I'm a forensic psychiatrist. You can probably see I've not been in the business for 2 or 3 years. It's closer to 30 in forensics. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to make 3 points. I've been chewing on this and I've got the stats. I'm not going to tell you that only 30% of the recommendations for inquests ever get followed, that there's no oversight, that there are people in jails that are not being treated, etc. You know that. I went to segregation cell in 1994 in Hamilton, 5 minutes from the hospital, downtown Hamilton, wealthy country. I thought I'd gone into a place that I couldn't imagine. What I saw that particular day, and I have to remind myself because I've become inured to what I've seen over the years. I've seen people lying, sweating on the floor, naked, feces all over, urine all over, and that stuff still goes on. The problem is I've become inured to that. That's one of the problems. I've walked through jails where it looks like I've gone into a place. That was now the Brantford jail has been closed, but there were men in cages. Like they stood there looking out at these 6, 8, 10 guys locked up in these places, and you wonder what's going on. I went to Toronto South, a brand new jail, 10 years old, I think, brought up from the States. Some of those cells are barren, they're cold, freezing cold, and that's a new, modern cell. That's where we put people. And that's where the people with mental illnesses are as well. I've been involved in a number of inquests. I know Anisha's walked out, but we met before a long time ago, but Ashley Smith, Terry Baker, multiple other inquests. And I will tell you, if you're going to do anything, it's not the inquests, because the inquests are brilliant. It's that just nobody follows.
Mhm.
But to tell you the class action lawsuits, where there's $500 million worth of damages found, or that may make a difference. Okay, so what I'm going to say is a couple of things. One is nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change. We've been doing the same thing over and over, 40 years, 100 years. Dorothea Dix hundreds of years ago. But I'm telling you, nothing's going to change. And one of the reasons nothing is going to change is that we are who we are. Many of you watch TVs and TV shows and movies, and you know that part where the detective or the crown says to the accused or the guy that's going away, or they're going to question, you're going to meet Baba in jail and see what it's like for you. And we laugh. We live in a world where we other people more than we've ever done in my lifetime. We demonize people, and if they're demonized, they deserve no treatment as a human being. Point to what's happening in the States, but it's not just the States, it's many countries. You call somebody a traitor, traitors get killed. That's what you do. So we have so many conflicts around the world, and we as human beings, it is something in our nature. And the only way things are going to change is if we recognize that, because we've been doing the same thing over and over and over. People before us have been banging the same drum, and things are only getting worse, notwithstanding the fact that we have much more money. So three things that I think we can do and should do. That's perhaps a little different. One is to remind you of the ethical obligations that we have as lawyers, as physicians. And those ethical obligations include speaking out when we see something wrong. Those fingers point to me too. I'm from South Africa originally. Steve Biko, somebody may remember that case where 3 physicians saw Steve Biko. They went in and provided care, didn't question the jail, and he ultimately died. Lots of stuff came from that. I looked at all of my medical psychiatric obligations and ethical they include a number of different things, but some of them is to speak up for the individual. And our duty is not to our employer, it's the people that we see as a physician or the clients that you see. And don't tell me that there weren't physicians at Maplehurst when those guys were locked up. And again, I don't work in corrections. I've been into correctional facilities, so perhaps it's a different obligation if you visit, but if you work there, surely you must know. And do you not have an ethical obligation, and shouldn't people be held accountable? And I understand why that happens, because, you know, people are scared of recriminations and retribution. And it's not just legal. People are personally unsafe, as many of you will know. But I think we need to remind ourselves, and we need to speak out at our organizations. If you see it, report it. In forensic psychiatry, we've been writing about advocacy, right? This idea about being objective. But the truth is, we see things that nobody else sees. I've seen things that is unimaginable, and it was 5 minutes from where I work in a reasonably big center. And I bet you we can travel a few minutes from here and we can see things that I can tell you, you can't make a movie about, a horror movie about. So let's remind ourselves of our ethical obligations. Let's sharpen those and put pressure on us as lawyers and physicians to speak out when we see or hear. That's one thing I think we can accelerate. The other thing is something called Hanlon's razor, which is this idea that I think we need to appreciate. I don't think Hanlon's razor, it's not the actual razor, it's a sort of a rule of thumb, which is basically not everyone's out to get you. So what it means is you don't need to attribute malice to something that could be explained by stupidity or incompetence or misunderstanding. I think the problems are not necessarily with the people on the inside. Because I've met people in the ministry, I've met people in corrections, they're trying to do the right thing. They're just not the right people in the right place. You train people to contain people, they're not the people there to treat people. So we need to understand that we need to work together and row together and figure a way of speaking across specialties, or because if we fight each other, sometimes what happens is just because the wrong people in the wrong place doing these sorts of things. So I think that helps. I mean, I've seen people who've done horrendous things. I'm sure many of you have as well. Many of them are actually quite nice to talk to. It's quite surprising. I mean, that's how they get close to victims, of course. And, you know, they're not going to hurt you because you're there to help them. But I've also seen things change really quickly. So those, you know, correctional facilities can be extremely dangerous places, extremely dangerous. And it's sometimes disarming to talk to the people that, you know, you're assessing or you're helping because they come across as different. And that's probably because everybody has a good part to them. That's not where you should be putting people with mental illnesses, as many of you have heard. So I think we need to just understand that we can probably get together if we work together and understand the different perspectives that people have. So the final point that I think that we need to do, and I strongly advocate, is that we need to unite and make demands to change. By ourselves, it's not going to happen. And coming together once a year and talking about the statistics is not going to help. You'll hear, we live in a different world. We live in a digital world. People listen to 30 seconds on TikTok and Instagram more than they listen to and are influenced. And look at what's happening in the States, what a president can do on X and change the population. We need to be savvy about that. We were talking about, we'll hear about the movie. Sadly, there had to be a movie, but we need to write, we need to use the media, and we need to inform people where they will listen and change. An example is that there's good research to suggest omega-3s and vitamin D reduces violence significantly. Lots of great research on that. Corrections won't introduce that. Strange. It's actually quite unusual. So we need to make demands, but we need to make demands not in the traditional ways. We need to unite. That's everybody. It's this group, it's the physician group, it's the community. It's the community because you know what? As Janice Blackman I used to say, I mean, we're all patients in waiting, right? It's easy to be over there, but it's us, it's our families. So we need to ask for greater oversight. Detention centers could be on another planet. It feels like it when you go in, but again, you don't feel it once you've been going in and out many times. We need greater oversight. We need data transparency. We need to get access to the data. We need independent monitoring of what's going in. The monitoring is not independent. You can't get the right data. We need better housing. A population in Ontario has gone up 1.5 million in 10 years. Do you think our roads, our public transit, our housing, our physician supply, beds in hospitals, correctional beds have gone up? They have not. They've stuck. What on earth can go wrong when a person with a mental illness can't get access to a family doctor or housing? And what do you think is going to happen? So we need to make those demands, and we need to make those demands as a group of people working together. And part of that is to get out and vote, right? Because we need to get the right government, because the best answer is the right governance and the right government. So governance includes monitoring, the oversight of what's happening in jails and so on. So again, I don't think anything's going to change if we do things the same way. I really don't. It's part of human nature. And I think we're part of it. You know, I laugh when I see those things and then I catch myself. Because 8,000 people are raped in jails every year in this country. Right? How acceptable is that? That's not Department of Corrections, that's something else. So again, 3 points. Ethical obligation, let's get together. Think about the fact that we can work together. Not everybody is out to get us, that maybe everyone wants the same thing, and we need to unite and demand change as a group. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I like that nice framing of the 3 points, and not everyone's out to get us, although it feels that way sometimes.
Absolutely.
And we'll have Yusuf now, and if you can talk about the challenges and successes.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Maybe you can help me with this. Sorry. I want to first thank WiCCD and LAMDA, Justice Presser, Dena, and my friend Anita for organizing this event. We need to have this event more often, and we need to have it more frequently, not just in 1 year. So this is very important. I'm very grateful to be sitting with my fellow panelists and also with Naomi Sayers for moderating. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna talk a bit differently here. But before I start this conversation, when we're looking at folks with mental health challenges, Justice Jones made a very important comment, recognizing the humanity. So when all of you folks, ladies and gentlemen, I think I do better this way. Yeah. All of you folks, ladies and gentlemen, look at this from two lenses, a binary lens, one from your own respective profession, but also from a human lens. So whether you're a judge, a Crown attorney, defense counsel, psychiatrist, social worker, psychologist, advocate, law student, this is very important. And I'm going to get to Dr. Chaimowitz's comment about nothing's going to change and going to go a bit further. But before that, I just want to take a couple minutes about Suleiman, talk about Suleiman, my late brother. When I buried him, I made one promise to him. And that promise was to make sure that his death would not be the last part of his life. I love Sully very dearly. There's so much to talk about him, but one thing I will say for everybody to humanize that human that I lost, that beloved brother, was someone who taught my mom how to read. We came to this country from humble roots. We originally escaped war, originally from Afghanistan. We came here as refugees. He taught my mom how to read, all right? And ironically, the day that I found out that Suleiman was beaten to death, the day that I found that he was dead, I was working for an advisor to the Deputy Attorney General. That's the ironic paradox, but to start off our conversation. So I want everybody to know that, right? When you think of folks with mental health challenges, right? And he was much more than just his illness. He was a gifted mind and someone whose legacy has never been forgotten. That's who he was for my family. And when we decided to fight, and that night when I found out that Solly lost his life,
thank you, everyone, for coming back. And on Zoom, thank you so much for staying with us. I'm told there's still about 80 people on Zoom that were just holding tight where the rest of us had to go outside. And for those who missed, I'm sorry, Yusuf's his talk, we're going to hopefully have him redo some of it by video so we can send it to the 150 people who've been on Zoom today, so that I know all of you had to miss that part and it was very important. And so we will try to rectify that. So hang tight on that. But I do want to thank you for closing out today, Yusuf. It made more powerful, I think, with the fire trucks and firefighters and standing, you know, on the sidewalk, giving his presentation. So my job right now is really just to close out what was and has been a wonderful day. What is probably obvious to all of you is how wonderful it's been to work here together and hear everyone's perspectives from, you know, across the aisle, not just kind of horizontally across the aisle, Crown and Defense, but also clients, judges, psychiatrists, all in the room together. And for many of us, we participate in an adversarial system every day. And you know, I think Neha said it earlier about really practicing with kindness. And this is really one of the examples of doing that, which is all getting together and being able to collectively think through really important and big legal topics that excite all of us. And I do want to just have a special shout out to Anita Zaghetti, who really is the person who spearheaded today. It is not often, as we all know, that we have access to free CPD. So in addition to kind of having this idea and collectively working, oh, now the lights are really going off. You know, she's also helping fund today to ensure that we have free CPD altogether. And it really demonstrates a strong kind of leadership in this field and mentorship, really. You know, often we think of mentorship as one person connecting over coffee with somebody else or helping on their cases. But this really is another wonderful example of mentorship to the entire profession of donating hours and getting all the wonderful, fabulous speakers to come and donate their time as well. And everyone wanted to do that because of Anita's leadership. So thank you so much. And so I have two more things before we leave. One is that the online folks, we have 3 winners for EMOND criminal law series that you can pick out one book each, and the 3 people online. And if you can email us after and we can connect you with EMOND, are Mark Rieger, Nicole Wilkinson, and Oksana Romanov. Sorry if I said that wrong, but all 3 of those people have been with us today online, and we want to thank you. And finally, so we've closed out the day. This was great. I hope you've made great connections and talked to people. And I would love for the people in the room, if you continued to build on those conversations and connections at the sushi, sushi what? I know I did, sushi place, I think. So to get there, Spring Sushi, it's really good. I have been there. If you go to Yonge Dundas Square, the building that has the winners, the Cineplex, Little Canada, the little miniature place, you go into that building and up, I think 3-4 floors. It's the sushi place there. We would love it if all of you came and just continued to connect. And just lastly, thank you all of us, everyone here, for coming and supporting and just, you know, being here and listening all day and going outside and back inside. We really think we couldn't have done it without you. So thanks so much. And that is officially the end.